Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, namaste and good morning to you all. Thank you so very much for coming to our birthday celebration of Swami Brahmananda, better known to us as Raja Maharaj. I won't be interrupting this short talk this morning for any comments or questions, but we will have time at the end for that. You'll see why as we go through. Again, thank you for coming. The announcements, of course, are very short. We have a continuing very serious pandemic, so the center is closed to personal visits. You can come and use the shrine for personal meditation. It would be very much appreciated if you would make any, if you need to see me or want to see me, that you make an appointment to do that so that we can discuss it. With that, I will begin. February is a month for a study of Bhakti Yoga. A Bhakti yogi, bhakta, establishes a devotional relationship with God through study, prayer, ritual, and worship. This often begins with a feeling of reverence or awe, which may slowly grow into a conviction that everything without exception manifests the Lord's power and grace. As a bhakta, you practice giving every action, thought, emotion, perception, and tendency a Godward turn. All your energies and attributes, both positive and negative, are offered to the divine presence. Your prayer is for self-surrender and ultimately union with your beloved. So that's the definition, a short definition of Bhakti Yoga and its practice. One of the great bhaktas of the Ramakrishna order was, of course, Swami Brahmananda, or more affectionately known, Raja Maharaj. Today's talk is titled, Lovest Thou Me? and it is a celebration of Raja Maharaja's life and his birthday. This is from the New Testament, the Gospel of John. Jesus saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he asked him the third time, lovest thou me? And he answered him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Jesus saith unto him, feed my sheep. John 21:17. That's from the King James Version. Why this quote to open a celebration of Swami Brahmananda's birthday? As I said, we'll, for the rest of this, pretty much call him Raja Maharaj. So I'll start with this story that will ours in Raja Maharaj's room. Maharaj came quietly up behind him and whispered in his ear, lovest thou me? At that moment, Prabhavananda became ecstatic. Later, over time, he came to understand the meaning of Maharaj's gesture, that he too was being called on to feed the Lord's sheep. Raja Maharaj, his guru, became the first president of the Ramakrishna Math and Mission, serving from 1901 to 1922. Swami Prabhavananda was sent to the United States in 1925, first coming to San Francisco, then going to Portland. But in 1929, he started the Vedanta Society of Southern California in the Hollywood Hills, not far from downtown Los Angeles. It would become the largest Ramakrishna Mission Center outside of India. In the late 1960s, there were more than 1,500 members of that society's congregation. Yet Swami Prabhavananda never would take any credit for the society's great success. He said it was all due to the power and grace of Raja Maharaj. So who was Maharaj? Maharaj was born Rakal Chandra Ghosh on January 21st, 1863. He became Sri Ramakrishna's disciple in 1881 at age 19. The master from the start called Rakal his spiritual son, and Holy Mother also had that relationship with him, Sri Sharada Devi. Rakal was their spiritual son. Maharaj's lunar calendar birthday falls this year on February 8th. So we're celebrating it today with a talk about his life and achievements, and that will be followed by an informal worship. By informal, I mean not tantric. It's the kind of worship that Mother used to do, Holy Mother used to do, of the Master, simply chanting a little bit, waving the light and the incense, and ringing a bell and so on, and then decorating the shrine with worship, with flowers, decorating the shrine with flowers, and then feeding the Master. Well, we'll feed Brahmananda a little bit today. So as I said, Raja Maharaj was born in January of 1863 in the village of Sikra Kulangram in North Parganas, in a North Parganas district of West Bengal in India. His pre-monastic name, as said, was Rakal Chandra Ghosh. His father, Ananda Mohan Ghosh, was the landlord of that village and also practiced law in Kolkata. His mother was Kailash Lakshmi Devi. From his early childhood, Rakal was indrawn by nature. He practiced meditation as a boy and enjoyed interacting with images of the deities. He was brought to Kolkata to attend high school. And during that time in high school, he became a close friend of Narendranath Datta. Narendranath, we'll call him Naren, became the leader. Narendranath, Naren, became the leader of Sri Ramakrishna's closest disciples, the ones who would become the monks later. After the master's death, Naren took the monastic name Swami Vivekananda. Affectionately, he's known to us now as Swamiji. So Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda, Maharaj or Raja Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda. Rakal's brother-in-law, a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, Rakal's brother-in-law was a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, and it was he who brought Rakal to Sri Ramakrishna in 1881. At the very first sight of him, Sri Ramakrishna recognized Rakal as his spiritual son, and also as a cowherd boy of Vrindavan in Sri Krishna's divine play, the Rasa Lila. Now, actually, the master had had a vision. Sri Ramakrishna had had a vision of Rakal coming to him, floating on the Ganges. And indeed, Rakal, when he did come, came by boat. So he knew him immediately. Under Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual guidance, Rakal gradually attained high spiritual states, including Nirvikalpa Samadhi. This was a gift that the master bestowed on those young men who would later become his monks in the Ramakrishna order, and also on some others of the householder devotees. There was some involvement that way, particularly on Kalpataru Day, January 1st, 1886. After the master left his body in August of 1886, Rakal became a monk in January 1887, renouncing the worldly life. He had been married and had a child. He renounced the worldly life and took his formal monastic name, Swami Brahmananda. As one of the small band of monks who would later become the Ramakrishna order, he helped establish their first monastery at Baranagore, a neighborhood in Kolkata. Soon, however, he left that monastery and went to practice spiritual disciplines in Vrindavan, Dwaraka, Varanasi, Narmada, Mount Abu, and other places. This lasted about 6 years. During that period, he had many mystical experiences. As he said, it was necessary for him to make what Sri Ramakrishna had given him his own. Why? Why did he need to make it his own? That is to say, make it fully embody it, so that he could give it to others. That's why he needed to do these spiritual disciplines. He was asked, why are you doing this? Sri Ramakrishna gave you everything. He said, I must make it my own in order to be able to give it to others. When Swami Vivekananda returned from the West in 1897, Swami Brahmananda Raja Maharaj returned to the monastery, which by that time had moved to Alambazar. When Swamiji founded the Ramakrishna Mission on May 1st, 1897, this was the beginning of this movement. Swami Vivekananda came back from the West all fired up he said, I have a mission to the West. And so that mission to India and the mission to the West was formalized as the Ramakrishna Mission on May 1st, 1897. Raja Maharaj was made president of the Calcutta Center at that time. In 1901, at the request of Swamiji, he became president of the Ramakrishna Math, Raja Maharaj did, which was now at Belur and the Ramakrishna Mission. So now Raja Maharaj was president of the entire organization that Swamiji had founded. Swamiji said of Maharaj, the Divine Mother writes with her own hand on the forehead of people. The Divine Mother writes with her own hand on the forehead of people of such spiritual stamp, and all nature must honor them, and nature instinctively obeys. Now, this was as high a compliment as Swami Vivekananda, Swamiji, could pay. Maharaj contributed immensely towards spreading the message of the Ramakrishna order throughout the world. Discipline by means of spiritual growth was his style of leadership. He led by and through love. Any of you who would like to know more about that particular aspect and how it came to and down to what's sitting here through Swami Prabhavananda, I invite you to ask me privately about it. It's really quite remarkable. Raja Maharaj was known as a spiritual dynamo. Whoever came in contact with him could feel tangibly both his electrifying spirituality and his deep love of the monks and devotees. Both were felt in his presence. He was a practical and capable administrator. Many of the guidelines he established for the Ramakrishna order are still followed. These include those for administration, accounting, relief services, philosophical orientation, and standards of conduct. Under his 21-year stewardship, the order made remarkable progress, expanding widely both in India and internationally. Maharaj entered into Mahasamadhi on April 10th, 1890. Maharaj entered into Mahasamadhi on April 10th, 1922, in Kolkata, actually this happened at Balaram Bose's house. You can visit there and be in the room where Brahmananda left the body. So on April 10th, 1922, in Kolkata at the age of 60, 2 days before his death, he called his brother monks and disciples to him, and in a most exalted mood spoke hour after hour on spiritual topics. Those who were with him said he spoke, quote, in a manner that will never be effaced from the memory of the listeners. He spoke in a manner that will never be effaced from the memory of his listeners. Much of what he said is related in Swami Prabhavananda's book, The Eternal Companion. Raja Maharaj said it was time for him to end his sport on earth, that the voice of the beloved Lord was calling him back, now that his task was over, to his blessed companionship. He left the body peacefully, surrounded by his brother monks, disciples, and other loved ones during the night of April 10th. Now, all of this, of course, will be posted with the recording of this talk. For those of you who wish, at the end of this, I have put the Ramakrishna Order's full formal biography of Raja Maharaj. So if you want to know more details, and there are many more details, of course, you're most welcome to download this. It'll be in the form of a PDF along with the talk. So before I go ahead and start the worship, are there any comments or questions? Anything you'd like to say about anything I've said or anything else that relates to all of this from your own wisdom or experience? Or if you have some question you'd like to ask, please do.
Brother Shankara.
Yes, Uma.
I am wondering why, there's no why, but is there any specific reason why Sri Ramakrishna chose Vivekananda to go outside to spread the message and not Raja Maharaj? Because he was also deeply committed and of course a realized soul. So why that happened?
All right, here is my understanding of that, dear.
Okay.
First of all, Sri Ramakrishna very carefully trained Vivekananda to do his mission to the West. He said, I have many disciples in the West. I do not speak their language, but they are mine. And so he trained him. Furthermore, Vivekananda had an absolutely exemplary Western education.
That makes sense.
As Professor Wright at Harvard said of him, when Swamiji was asked for credentials to go to the Parliament of Religions as a representative, Professor Wright, a prestigious professor at Harvard, made this remark. He said, asking Vivekananda for credentials is like asking the sun for credentials to shine.
Absolutely.
Now, what about Raja Maharaj? Why Brahmananda he had a deep and abiding love of India. So did Swamiji, come to that, but these were brother monks. The two of them were the two principal. So one had the task as this is how Raja Maharaj came by this name, the name Raja Maharaj. Sri Ramakrishna once said of him, Rakal has the qualities that will allow him to be a king. Well, Vivekananda heard him loud and clear. He understood the subtleties of what Sri Ramakrishna was saying and said, we shall make Rakal our king. This small band of monks, we shall make him our king. We shall call him Raja Maharaj. Raja, of course, means king. And Maharaj means great king. So that's what happened. I mean, Vivekananda actually bestowed the name Raja Maharaj on him. Rakal did not have the kind of education, Western education, that Vivekananda had. At age 19, he became Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual son. And Sri Ramakrishna doted on him like a baby. He would hold him on his lap. He would feed him with his own hands. And to complete his education, so to speak, Sri Ramakrishna sent him to stay for an extended period of time at Vrindavan. And that's where this was before Sri Ramakrishna's passing away. So Vivekananda, as he said in February of 1896 to the Brooklyn Ethical Association, when a reporter asked him the question, Swami, Hinduism is not thought of as a proselytizing religion. And Vivekananda remarked, I have a mission to the West, as Buddha had a mission to the East. And so that's why the two, as it's understood from here, that's why these two ended up with the responsibilities that they had. And they both discharged them absolutely in the most exemplary manner.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankar?
Actually,
Yes, please. Whoever. Bhagirath, could you wait for this other fellow? Who was it that spoke?
yeah, this is Bhaskar. I just wanted to go back and kind of add to the fact that it was just not the educational credentials that made Vivekananda suitable. I would almost put that Vivekananda had a certain acumen, educational qualifications being a part of it, and that acumen absolutely dovetailed with what was needed in the West. Similarly, Raja Maharaj probably had another different but supporting complementary acumen that probably supported exactly the things that needed to be done at home. And I almost think that just like an organization has a CEO and they have different acumens, and you have a COO for running the operation that has a separate acumen. And again, these are not private organizations, these are nonprofit organizations. So I think those acumens are really what dovetailed needed to happen here.
Very well said. Exactly. I mean, we could go on for a long time about the personal characteristics of both of these men, but the word acumen is a very, very good summary word. Tremendous acumen for the task that they were given. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bhagirath.
Yes. There are 2 or 3 things I wanted to share. Number one, the concept of spiritual son dates back to India thousands of years back, when Narada was born out of Brahma, but not Brahma's body. He had a lotus coming from his umbilicus, and there rose Narad. And that is why Narada is called Manasputra, not spiritual son, but Manasputra of Brahma. So concept that a person does not belong to the fatherhood by giving a physical birth, but by a mental, spiritual birth. So
Mhm.
that way it exactly understand why he selected this one as his Manasputra or spiritual son. Number 2, these people, when they live with a particular goal in life. So when his job was done, when his mission was accomplished, he says, time for me to fold up. They don't want to hang on to life for its own sake, for a minute more than necessary. And therefore, the goal in Sanskrit is called dheya, something which you keep on thinking every minute in our life. Many times what we do, we want to do many things, but that is not our dheya. We do not think of it all the time, day in and day out. So that is the one on the dheya. The third thing, to me, it is exemplary that there was no competition in our matter about who succeeds whom as a throne to the chiefhood of the mutt. Anyone is given a responsibility, he takes over and goes further. And that tradition, even now, when Swami Sahanandaji left his body, there was no competition that I want to follow him, now I want to take the leadership. That goes to show that the Vedic principles that we are talking, they are actually executed in the life, the body and mind of all the monks that form the congregation of Ramakrishna Math.
Thank you, Bhagirath. And that is the kind of people that are produced by the Ramakrishna Math and the Sarda Math because of the very high standards of conduct that they have.
Yes, yes.
So this is why they're so highly regarded in India and why they're so trusted when there's famine relief or disaster relief or something. The Ramakrishna order is given huge amounts of money with the full understanding that not one anna of it will be spent for anything but the purposes for which it was intended. Then there will be no hanky-panky, if you will. So this is it's just as Bhagirath pointed out. These things they're still very, very much following the principles that Raja Maharaj laid down, and Vivekananda also. Anything else?
Brother Shankara, this is Fred.
Yes, Fred.
Good morning. Good morning to
Good morning.
class. Could you please briefly comment on your guru's specific relationship to Raja Maharaj?
Well, Swami Prabhavananda was one of his principal disciples. There isn't any arguing about that. He became his disciple when he was still in college. As a matter of fact, he didn't go on to get advanced degrees. He got only a bachelor's degree because he became a monk. Swami Brahmananda drew him to him. Raja Maharaj drew him to him. And he became one of Raja Maharaj's foremost disciples. And that's why when Swami Prabhavananda founded the Vedanta Society of Southern California, which remains the largest Ramakrishna Mission Center outside of India, he said, this is all the power and grace of Raja Maharaj. He did not take credit for it. He always acted on behalf of the person that he called his master. So it was a very close, loving relationship. And that's why Prabhavananda had the responsibility of taking care of his room when Raja Maharaj did this thing of coming up behind him, stealing up behind him, actually, when the Swami was busy cleaning the mantelpiece and arranging flowers there. And saying in his ear, "Lovest thou me?" And of course, it was some time before Swami Prabhavananda understood the significance of this, given what's in the Gospel of John. You will feed my sheep. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone?
Shankara Amadas here.
Yes, Amadas.
Just really quickly, I know it's an oversimplification, but it's almost like Swami Ji got assigned the international policy and Raja Maharaj got domestic policy from Sri Ramakrishna. And two of the key characteristics, it hasn't been mentioned, but it's my understanding that Swami Vivekananda was a lion of a man, and that his ministry here in the West was very physically taxing on him. And that it was his physical constitution that carried him through the years in the West, because he was a trailblazer and faced confrontation and questioning of everything that he put out.
Yeah.
And it was also suggested to me that English was more of a co-first language for Swami Vivekananda rather than a second language. He could think in English because of his education, his formal education. It was a co-first language, and he operated in English the same way he could in Bengali or Hindi.
Or Sanskrit.
Or Sanskrit.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. He was. This was commented on by the newspapers at the time. His eloquence was spontaneous. He had no notes. He had nothing in front of him when he spoke, and yet he was eloquent and articulate and, as you said, passionate. Yes, he was known as, Vivekananda was known as the cyclonic monk. And he burned up his body by the time he was 39. Raja Maharaj had a very different task, establishing a new monastic order in India, particularly given the kinds of work that they did, which were a system of practices, education in the villages, disaster relief, things like this. When they first started these things, first of all, not all of the younger monks, the disciples of the direct disciples, agreed with it. One of the reasons was it was not traditional, and other monastic orders scoffed at them in the beginning, saying, what they're doing is women's work, which, of course, certainly speaks to the patriarchy that Vivekananda denounced about the role of women, but nevertheless, now virtually all the monastic orders, now in the 21st century, virtually all the monastic orders of India do the kind of work that Vivekananda taught the young Ramakrishna order to do, and that Brahmananda so capably administered. Here's an example. At Varanasi, they had established a clinic which would go on to become a hospital. It was to serve the poor, and not all of the monks who were there agreed with this, that is, doing this kind of work with the sick people and so on was not a monastic way of doing things. And so there are two factions formed among these monks there. One supportive of the program, the other not. Well, the head of that Varanasi ashram, of which the clinic was a part, wrote to Brahmananda, Raja Maharaj, saying, Maharaj, I've identified the ringleader of these people who are disagreeing, and I think if we discharge him, in other words, put him out of the order, everything will be all right. Raja Maharaj wrote back, do nothing until I come. He went to Varanasi from, I think he was in Mumbai at the time, maybe, I don't know, Chennai, Mumbai. He was in South India. And he went to Varanasi and he stayed for 2 weeks. He didn't do anything to discipline anyone. All he required was that they all come and meditate with him at 4 a.m. every morning. All the monks were to come and meditate with him. That went on for 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 weeks period, the factionalism had simply disappeared. The ringleader, so-called, was not discharged, was not disciplined, was not even scolded. He simply was one of the ones who came and sat with Raja Maharaj. This is what I meant when I, in the talk, said that you could feel something in his presence. It was tangible, and it was transformative. So as Swami Prabhupada said, we are ruled by love. And that was Raja Maharaj's way. Thank you, Amadas. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankar, just one quick final comment.
Yes, Bhagarat.
That basically when the human beings get together, then the strength is created. That is why who is deputed to do what is not even the question. See, when a surgeon works, he needs knife for a different purpose, scissors for a different person, needle for a different purpose, and all these instruments together makes operation so successful.
Yes.
And therefore, one is better than the other is not even the question. And this is exactly what Shri Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, Sange Shakti Kalo Yuge. Union is strength in Kali Yuga. This is what Buddha said, Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. I join the crowds of people because that's where the pool of talents is created.
Yes, I take refuge in the Sangha, and I help empower the Sangha, and the Sangha helps empower me. Look at what we see here in front of us this morning. The Sangha. This is our sweet group of supportive, loving people. Anything more from anyone? All right, dears. I'll begin the worship portion. We're going to first decorate the shrine with some flowers. Then I'll just go into this informal worship of the light, the incense, and then some food will be offered also. Something that we think Raja Maharaj would have liked. So with that, I will begin. Jai Shri Ramakrishna. Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Shri Ramakrishna. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Jai Shri Ma Mahamai Ki Jai. Jai Swamiji Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Jai Raja Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. May it be so. Om Hari Om. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Ishwar Thakur Sarada. Beloved Master, thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Om Amen. Om Amen. Om Amen. Hari Om Tat Sat. Vamachalo Gunajit Gunedyaha Naktam Divam Sakarunam Tavapadamam Moham Kasham Bahukritam Nabhajyatoham Tasmat Tvameva Sharanam Mama Dina Bandhu Bhaktir Bhagascha Bhajanam Bhava Bedakari Gacchantyalam Suvipulam Gamanaya Tatavam Vaktrodrito Piridime Nachabati Kinchit Tasmat Tvameva Sharanam Mama Dina Bandhu Tejastaranti Tvaritam Tvai Tripta Trishna Ragam Rite Ritapate Tvai Rama Krishne Martyamritam Tavapadam Maranorminasham Tasmat Tvameva Sharanam Mama Dina Bandhu Prityam Karoti Kalusham Kuhakantakari Shantam Shivam Suvimalam Tavanamanata Yasmataham Tvasharano Jagadeka Gamyaham Tasmat Tvameva Sharanam Mama Dina Bandhu Om Shtapakaya cha Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupinye Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Om Namah Shri Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya Namo Namaha Om Namah Shri Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya Namo Namaha Om Namah Shri Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya Namo Namaha. Breaker of this world's chain, we adore thee whom all men love. Spotless, taking man's form, O purifier, thou art above the gunas three. Knowledge divine, not flesh, thou whom the cosmos wears a diamond at its heart, let us look deep in thine eyes. They are bright with the wisdom of God that can wake us from Maya's spell. Let us hold fast to thy feet, treading the waves of the world to safety. O drunk with love, God drunken lover, in thee all paths of all yogas meet. Lord of the worlds, thou art ours, who art born a child of our time, easy of access to us. O merciful, if we take any hold upon God in our prayer, it is by thy grace alone, since all thine austerities were practiced for our sake. How great was thy sacrifice, freely choosing thy birth in this prison, our iron age, to unchain us and set us free. Perfect, whom lust could not taint, nor passion nor gold draw near, O Master of all who renounce, fill our hearts full of love for thee. Thou hast finished with fear and with doubt, standing firm in the vision of God, refuge to all who have cast fame, fortune, and friends away. Without question thou shelterest us, and the world's great sea in its wrath seems shrunk to the puddle that fills a hoofprint in the clay. Speech cannot hold thee nor mind, yet without thee we think not nor speak. Love, who art partial to none, we are equal before thy sight. Taker away of our pain, we salute thee, though we are blind. Come to the heart's dark cave and illumine, thou light of the light. Oh, dearly beloved Raja Maharaj, please accept our worship. Please accept our love and our unending desire to be in relationship with you and all that you represent. Your life was that of the eternal companion. As Swami Prabhavananda wrote, you are forever the companion of the Lord when the Lord takes human birth. So gracious was the Lord to bring you. So gracious was the Lord to give you the responsibilities that he gave you. So gracious were you to do those responsibilities in such a way that we see the results now around the world and throughout India. Our hearts are yours, Raja Maharaj. Our hearts are yours. Our minds are yours. Our efforts are yours to continue this work. Jai Sri Ramakrishna Jai Ma. Jai Swamiji. Jai Raja Maharaj. Please be so gracious as to take this food. I don't think that Raja Maharaj would mind us talking while he's eating. So is there anything further that anyone would like to say, to offer? Anything from your own love, from your own experience, from your own wisdom about any and all of this? Or any question that you'd like to ask?
May I,
Please.
Shankara, I wanted to recite just one shloka which Swami Yogeshananda always used to. And it's one stanza. And it starts with Brahmananda. So that's what inspired me to present this, if I may.
Please, dear.
I'm not a singer, but I'm just reciting. Brahmanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrusham Tatsamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalam Achalam Sarvati Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. And Yogeshananda translated it like this, which I am ad-libbing. I bow down to that true teacher who is the very embodiment of knowledge, who is beyond the pairs of opposites, that eternal, that pure, that all-pervading spirit, who is gunatita, beyond qualities. I bow down to that true teacher who is a witness of everything that goes around. Thank you.
Thank you, Uma. Beautiful, lovely translation. Thank you for translating it for us. And thank you for offering it. Yes, the true teacher, the one who is motiveless. They act only from the ego of wisdom or the ego of love, and completely non-self-interestedly. They do it only out of compassion for us. And they come, these teachers, the great teachers come, as Sri Krishna said, as Jesus said. They come because we need them. And they bring their companions, as Sri Ramakrishna said, my band of minstrels. They bring their companions to do their work. How fortunate are we to be part of that? Anything else at all from anyone? All right, dears. It's afternoon. Maharaj is having his lunch. It's probably time for a lot of you to have your lunches as well. So very, very glad you came and were with us this morning. This is such a joy to be part of this Sangha, this holy company. Let there be peace in outer space.
Let there be peace in outer space.
Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters.
Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the gods be peaceful.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
May the whole universe be pervaded by peace.
Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Any final thoughts from anyone? All right, dears. So concludes the birthday celebration, at least the publicly celebrated birthday celebration of Swami Brahmananda Raja Maharaj. If there's any doubt in your minds as to whether he is still present and active with us, go to the website for the Vedanta Society of Brazil and see what Raja Maharaj did there. The story is told on their website. I'm not going to narrate the story. I'll just say, if you want to know, go to the website for the Vedanta Society of Brazil, and you will be absolutely astounded at it's not only wondrous what happened, but it's actually so lighthearted and it just shows the great humor and love of these divine beings, these ever-free souls. All right, dears, until next time.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so very much for all being here. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Swamiji, Jai Swamiji, Jai Swamiji, Jai Raja Maharaj, Jai Raja Maharaj, Jai Raja Maharaj, Jai Shri Ramakrishna, Jai Shri Ramakrishna, Jai Shri Ramakrishna.